This next part hasn't happened yet. Later I saw this good man, my future desired husband, William, and me and my dad building a house together. We were married. I was very happy. I felt like the house we were building was mine and my husband's house, and I knew that I had found him on earth, and that I was able to leave my ex-husband and find the true husband that I really wanted to be with, my soulmate. I knew that our future would be great together. I was excited because I always wanted to build my own house with my future husband. I looked down at my future self on earth and observed my hair, and I loved it. My hair was layered and had blonde highlights. I even looked up at my past self from earth, and at the same time, I was looking down at my future self from heaven. We met eyes. I was astonished at that, and I wondered how it was possible to even do such a thing. How is it possible to see yourself from where I was into my future, while my future self looks up at me at her past? So weird. That was the end of my dream.
Right now, William and I are married, and we have enough, but not our own place to build a house yet. So I still anticipate this future event, but I feel that it could have either happened and I screwed it up, or maybe it will happen after a third world war when everyone is building up again, if I live through the hard times. I hope that I will. I woke up and felt that this dream was more like a memory of a premortal earth life in heaven before we came to earth. I immediately had hope, and I knew that if I left my ex-husband, George, that my Heavenly Father would help me to leave him. I remembered this dream so well that I had his face memorized from heaven, of what he looked like exactly. So after I left my ex-husband, George, I knew that I would be able to find my future husband someday. Eventually, I was able to leave my ex-husband. It took some time, and it was hard to do, but I had faith in my Heavenly Father, and He helped me to leave him. This is how it happened. I will share some of my life and how I ended up leaving my ex-husband, George, before the dream occurred. During this time, my 3-year-old son, Todd, who was playing with the neighbor girl that lived in our apartments, we were friends with her mom, and George's brother was dating the neighbor girl's mom, and he was there too. One of her little girls was playing with my son Todd at her house in the upstairs bathroom, and they were having an argument and yelling at each other. George got upset at them. He yelled at them to stop, and they didn't. So he ran upstairs and knocked the little neighbor girl on the head and kicked our 3-year-old son's arm, and I heard a snap. And I said, "I think you just broke Todd's arm," but he didn't cry at all. But the little girl was crying. So I took her home and told the girl's mom and George's brother what happened to their little daughter and possibly what happened to my son Todd's arm, but they didn't believe me. Then I went home and got something to eat before my little baby girl would wake up. While I was eating, our little son Todd came down and said something is wrong with my arm, and it was bent funny. And I then said, "Yes, I think it's broken," even though he wasn't crying. Todd couldn't move his little arm. Then George realized that it was broken. He called his mom Nellie to make sure that I wouldn't rat him out at the ER at the hospital. He told my son Todd that it happened to him when he fell down the stairs, because 2 days prior Todd had fallen down the stairs and hurt his hand and his arm a little bit on the stair railing that broke off and hurt him. But it had already healed and his arm was actually fine. But in my son's brain, he believed that what his dad told him. So did George's mother, and they wanted to make sure that I wouldn't say anything else. So I prayed that my son Todd would tell the doctor the truth at the ER, but he didn't. Instead, he told the doctor that he fell down the stairs. I was upset that he couldn't remember the truth of what happened, but I dealt with it.
Okay, now I'm to the point where
I had this strangling experience when I was pregnant with my baby girl. It's the same thing that I explained in the beginning of my first video. So if you want to go back to that, you can, but this would be even a shorter version of that. Basically, I was strangled by my husband and I was pregnant, and then my water broke. Then I went to the hospital and then I gave birth. And after that, I prayed that I would be able to fall out of love with my husband and get Heavenly Father's help to be able to leave him. And then that's when I had the premortal vision run dream. Now I will go on to the next part of what happened and how I was able to get out of that relationship. Later, I got a job when my baby girl was 9 months old, like I had planned, because I wanted to nurse her until she was 9 months old. Well, the day before my first day at work, we went to walk the dog at the high school, and it was summer, and I was pushing my baby daughter Lily in her stroller. And my ex-husband decided he was going to catch garter snakes. And then after he caught some snakes on the dead, dried up, grassy hill, George started pulling the stroller from the front. I told him to stop pulling me because I was losing my footing, but he ignored me and I slipped while holding onto the stroller. I couldn't let go of the stroller or let it fall, so my leg got the brunt of it. I dragged my leg behind me all the way down the hill. He didn't stop pulling even though I started screaming and crying. After that, I couldn't walk on my leg without excruciating pain, and I knew I had to work the next day. I had a swollen knee. It hurt so badly. I just felt like I couldn't let it stop me from going to work the next day. So I went to work the next day limping on one foot. I walked to work because it was down the road from our apartments. I felt like the adversary was trying to stop me from getting my job. I wasn't going to let him win. I worked through it, and I made an appointment with the doctor to see what was wrong with my knee. A week later, I went to the specialist and found out that in my knee I had ripped my meniscus tendon. So I got a cortisone shot for it, and I got cortisone shots every month to help with the pain. And after work, I would ice it, but I got through it even though it hurt. A month later, I got a letter from my dad and mom. They had written in the letter that my mom had cancer. I didn't have a phone, so I bought a calling card to talk to my mom at work, and I continued to buy calling cards every month from then on so I could talk to my mom. I knew that this was not a coincidence. I knew that her dying would be my way out of my state that I was living in, and I would be able to move near my mom and dad and eventually leave my ex-husband. After months of working, I later received a tax return and bought a car that just happened to be right on the same road I lived on. I believe the Lord had the guy who owned that car put it there for me. The Lord also had my mom get sick with cancer at this time. It was so perfectly planned out by our Heavenly Father, even though I was really sad about my mom having cancer. But I don't believe in coincidences. Everything is timed out in God's master plan. I knew it was my only way out of my marriage. I knew that I had to use my mother's cancer as a reason to move near my parents and my family. It was the only way I could move near my family without my ex-husband George thinking I was planning on leaving him. This was my only way out. I wasn't good at lying, so I had to focus on the truth, which was that I wanted to be near my mom so I could spend as much time with her as I could before she passed away.